Okay, guys, I'm off. Have fun.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to my channel. My name is Kylie if you're new, and today I am going to be reviewing The Lodge. Now I want to do a comment shout out because the reason I'm reviewing this movie right now is because a subscriber recommended it. So shout out to Jose, he's the reason why you're getting this review today. Now this movie came out last year in 2019 and it received a 74% on Rotten Tomatoes, but what happens in The Lodge? During a family retreat to a remote winter cabin over the holidays, the father is forced to abruptly depart for work, leaving his two children in the care of his new girlfriend Grace. Isolated and alone, a blizzard traps them inside the lodge as terrifying events summon specters from Grace's dark past. Now before I start on my fun facts and then get into my review, I want to let you guys know that I watched this movie a while ago and I did intend on doing a review sooner, but it didn't happen for two reasons. One, I kind of forgot about it, and two, I also needed a while to marinate with this movie. This is a very, very heavy movie, very emotional and very intense, and it took me quite a while to process it. And initially when I first watched it, I was like, wow, I'm never watching this again. But now that I've had a couple months to think about it, I actually really like this movie. So let me just get into my fun facts. So there's a dog in this movie and his name is Grady, which in Stephen King's The Shining is the name of one of the Overlook Hotel's caretakers. The writers of this movie drew inspiration from the real life cult called Heaven's Gate. I'm not going to talk about that because I'm not going to get into any spoilers yet, so if you're curious about that, definitely look it up. Very intense, weird stuff. Riley Cough? I don't know. Riley mentioned in an interview with Screen Rant that one day during filming she got so cold that she started crying, and the scene they were doing actually required her to be crying and stuff, but it was real, so. The writer and director of this movie, I believe, are also Spanish. I'm not entirely sure, but they filmed this movie in chronological order, and they mentioned that the American producers they worked with were not used to this at all. Because generally shooting things in chronological order, it just doesn't really make sense for production because it takes a lot more time, and it's a lot less efficient in a technical way. But for the actors, it really helps them because then they're able to grow into the story rather than jumping around, which I would imagine for horror and especially for this movie, I can see why that would really help them. But I want to talk about the location because this house, or well, it's more of a cabin. This cabin in the woods, if you will, was very creepy, very isolating, so I have a couple facts about the house as well. It's not a soundstage, it's a real location, and it took them a very long time to find just what they were looking for. They almost couldn't make the film because it was so late in the game during pre-production and they still hadn't found this house. They actually ended up finding it only 2 weeks before production started. And it took so long because the writer and director considered this house to be a character in the film, and they felt that it needed to be cast appropriately. And for them, they thought it was an extension of the mother from the beginning of the movie, and I won't get into spoilers yet, but just make a little mental note of that. And they did this through a bunch of religious symbolism throughout the house, and it was very creepy. Their use of religion really kind of set me on edge, and it put a really bitter taste in my mouth, but I'll get into that more later. So I'll talk about some of the movie elements and my general thoughts before I get into spoilers, so you're still clear for a little while. Jaden Martell from It is in this movie, and he did a phenomenal job, and also on that note, all of the acting in this movie was on point. And the woman that I mentioned before, Riley, I had never actually seen her in anything before, but her performance was immaculate, and I really hope she becomes a more prominent figure in horror. I also hadn't seen the young girl in anything else before, but she did a really good job in this as well. Now, as for the general vibes of this movie, if you were wondering why I thought I was never gonna watch it again, it's because it's a slow burn, but in a really good way because it's super anxiety inducing. But as someone who has anxiety, that's kind of a tough thing to handle when you're watching a movie that's just a constant build of it. It's comparable to Midsommar and Hereditary, which are also both slow burns, both more artistic pieces, and there aren't as many jump scares and stuff. It's a lot more psychological. This movie is very psychological. It's definitely not traditional horror, but on that note, apparently, according to this interview that I found online, the director and the writer felt the need to apologize for this movie because of what it was. So to quote Severin Fiala, who I believe was the director, they said, "We actually started out with the feeling that this would be a very commercial and sort of normal horror movie, and producers thought the same. But as we started writing and rewriting, we started thinking that this might be a bit less commercial than what we started with." That's an understatement. If you've experienced familial trauma or you've had a traumatic death in your family, I wouldn't recommend this movie to you because I feel like it might be really triggering. Or if you're just kind of an emotional person in general, or if you're a sensitive person, this is going to be a tough movie movie to watch. I had kind of a tough time upon my first watch. I think now that I know what happens, I'll be able to rewatch it and it'll be a little bit easier, a little bit more enjoyable perhaps, but it's definitely a tough one. This movie is also pretty relatable to what's going on right now because there are themes of isolation and such, and also some themes of timelessness without giving too much away. And right now there's a lot of people still self-isolating, especially in the US. If you're not from the US, good for you. But we're still struggling over here with COVID, and so a lot of us are still self-isolating and stuff, and time has just become meaningless, especially if you're unemployed, which, hi. But your girl does have an editing job in the works potentially, so we'll see what happens with that. It is a job that I can do remotely, so I don't know, but it's not 100% yet, so we'll see. Overall, the performances and how badly this movie induced my anxiety and how much it frightened me and stuff, I will say it's a really good horror movie. I know a lot of people won't agree because a lot of horror fans aren't really in it for the slow burn, they're not in it for the artistic vibes. As a film student, I personally am, but I know that it's not for everybody, so I just want to warn you guys again, this is an emotionally heavy movie, but if you're not sensitive, I would recommend watching it. I think it's worth it, at least for the one-time watch, even if you're not into slow burns, because this movie is very interesting, and there are some pretty climactic, crazy moments, and I think that makes up for any slower moments as well. It's very creepy, I think it's worth it. I think that I watched this on Hulu, but I don't think it's still on there anymore. I'm not sure. But anyways, if you haven't seen it at this point, I am gonna get into some spoilers, so bookmark this video and come back to it and let me know your thoughts after you've watched it. And so you can watch the rest of this video, of course. Okay, so this movie starts off with a literal bang with this mother killing herself with a gun. Okay, setting the tone, I see. That was a lot because I was like, wow, this woman has kids, and yet the situation with her husband and her depression and whatever still led her to take her own life, regardless of her kids and her family, so that was intense. And then right after that, after the funeral, the daughter is so upset because she thinks that her mom is not gonna get into heaven because she committed suicide. So this movie left a really bitter taste in my mouth about organized religion and stuff, because this child has essentially been brainwashed into thinking that her mom will not go to heaven because she killed herself. So this is very problematic, because how is this child supposed to move on when she thinks her mother is burning in the depths of hell? Depths. So anyways, that being said, a lot of this is taken from the perspective of the children, and so this stepmother figure obviously seems really sus. Like, you don't really know anything about her, she hasn't done anything bad that you know of, she seems perfectly normal, but because the story is told from the perspective of these children, whose mother just died and now there's this new younger stepmom whatever in place and they don't like her, it is pretty anxiety inducing and it is very weird. Also, when they get to the cabin, their father and she are immediately fornicating in the room next to them, and they can just hear them having sex. Like, why would you do that to your kids? Why would— horrible father, whatever. Sorry, this part of the review is not going to be very cohesive because I'm just kind of going in order of the events of the movie, and the next thing that I want to talk about is the way that they broke the fourth wall. It's very brief, but she's staring into the camera and you're like, whoa, whoa. But then of course we see the other angle and she's actually looking at a painting, a very weird religious painting at that. But yeah, that part was really weird because you're like, why is she staring into my soul right now? Very uncomfortable, very nice touch, I will say. These were some of the most frustrating characters, honestly, that I have ever experienced watching a movie. These little kids playing this prank that is so beyond serious. Like, they're just little pieces of can't say that, want to get monetized someday. But at one point, they think that they're trapped in this house in purgatory or whatever, and so Grace leaves and she tries to find a neighbor or something and tries to get to the town, and she literally just leaves these kids at the house, not knowing if she's gonna live or die out in the snow. As far as she knows, there's no food in the house or anything, so she left these kids there, and her dog on that note. So that's questionable in and of itself. And then obviously with the ending when she has a psychological break, I don't really know if I could fault her, like her character, for doing that. Obviously she did it, but she went into a psychosis. That's not really her fault. Like, she had PTSD, you know? And it was these little kids' fault. They literally caused the death of their father and then ultimately of themselves, which, Oh, see, that's the emotional stuff I was talking about. That was a lot to process. Now that I have processed it over these past few months, I can just talk about it like it's just a movie and whatever. But when you're watching the movie and like you're involved with these characters for almost 2 hours, you know, it does affect you emotionally. It does get under your skin. It almost seems like karma, but obviously they didn't deserve to die for pulling this horrible prank on this poor woman. But I honestly, I didn't really see it coming. Like for the longest time, I was like, yeah, they are in purgatory. Oh my God, they're dead. This is, wow. I didn't know it was a prank. And so I don't blame Grace for thinking that it was real as well. This was honestly such a roller coaster though, because at first I was like, no, it is a prank. But then some other stuff happened and I was like, wait, oh my God, they're dead. I knew it. But then of course they weren't. Ugh, a roller coaster ride. It was a very convincing roller coaster. I will say that. It was really good writing. I think this horror movie was so effective for me because so many elements of it were personally horrific to me. First of all, I don't like the cold. So they're trapped in the freezing cold in the middle of nowhere with no neighbors, no Wi-Fi, yikes, no power or water or food, so you can't even have the delights of life. There's also a lot of weird religious stuff going on, which just makes me really uncomfortable. And it made me wonder because they kind of used religion as a horror element in and of itself because of everything that happened. And it was also used as creepy imagery, so that's new, that's interesting. It's also a very bold choice, I will say, but I did agree with it. Overall, at first I thought I hated this movie because it messed with me so much, but then I realized that's exactly why I liked it, because most movies don't do that to me. I really, really love psychological horror, like that is one of my favorite subgenres. Tangent, I do also plan on making a video about my favorite subgenres of horror, and that will have some recommendations from each subgenre. Tangent over. This movie was also not predictable to me at all. I didn't see the death of their father coming, I really didn't. I didn't see the death of them. I kind of figured she was gonna have some sort of psychotic break, but I didn't see it going the direction that it did, but because of her culty background and stuff, totally makes sense. I don't know, comment down below if you've seen this movie and if you saw that coming, because I didn't. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up here, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw my socials on the screen. So my Instagram and my Twitter, they're both at Kai Johns, so you can follow me there and say what's up. I post to this channel every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. and then I also post once a week on my vlog channel, so 4 new videos a week. That's a lot of content, baby. Definitely be sure to check out my Halloween series and my Friday the 13th series, which I believe is ending this week. Oh, wow. I don't really want it to end, so if you have any other Friday themed videos you want me to cover, then definitely comment that down below as well. Definitely check out those petitions and those links down below. I update them on every single video. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that I catch you in the next one. Bye!